There are two main type of functions. They are either value returning functions or non-value returning function. Like either one of these two, there is no other types of function, right? So simply a value returning function is a program routine called for its return value. So when you call that function, in return you're getting something back. And we're going to see some examples on that. A non-value returning function, on the other hand, is called not for return value, but for its side effects. All right. And an example of that was the happy birthday song. Is this function is not returning any value, you're using it for its side effects. All right. It prints something for you, for instance, in this example. All right. So this function is not returning anything. So we call this function a non-returning non-value returning function. All right. So if you're not getting any value back in return, then it is a non-value returning function. And simply for non-value returning function, you call them as you just call the name of that function. If you have any arguments that you need to pass to those functions, you do that, and then you get like you go inside that function and follow the instructions, whatever those instructions are, right? So you use them for their side effects. And in this video, I'm going to show you some more examples of non-value returning function. All right, so let's try a different example now. So in this example, what I want to write, again, I do not have any other functions yet. I only have a main function which takes care of all the main functionality of my program. If you need to call something, any other function, or do some like main calculation, you can do them inside main or get any input from your user if you want to. So in this example, what I want to do is to add two numbers to each other. Okay, so I want to write a function that adds two numbers to each other and display the result. So I'm going to call the function sum problem. So I'm going to say def, oh, why I commented that. So I'm going to say def sum problem, and then since I'm trying to add two numbers to each other, I'm going to pass two numbers here. So I'm going to pass a and b to my function. And then inside this one, now I have access to a and b. When you have parameters here, that means you have those functions. Those are available to that function, all right? So you can do whatever you want to those variables, all right? So now I want to, like for instance, say add those two values to each other. So I simply say sum or total equal to a plus b, right? So I'm adding those two numbers to each other. Now I can create a string which is a sentence like the addition of a plus b is going to be total, for instance. All right, so I'm going to create that sentence equal to the sum of, I'm going to put placeholder, another placeholder is another placeholder, and after you're done, you use function format to put those values in. So this one I'm going to replace it with a, the second one I'm going to replace it with b, and then third one I'm going to replace it with total. Okay, so I have my total, I have my sentence, and what I'm going to do is say print sentence, right? So it simply gets two parameters, a and b. You add those two numbers to each other, and then you create a sentence which is simply a string, right? It says if a is, like for instance, 2, b is 4, it says the sum of 2 and 4 is 6, all right? And then you simply print that sentence. So now if I run this program, nothing is going to happen. You just get this print function from main, and you're not going to get anything from this function, all right? Because you never called this function. If you do not call a function, you are not going to call it, so you're not going to get its functionality. So if you want to use some problem, you can simply call it. I can say some problem, and then I can have the parentheses, and just remember, you see, like Python also gives you a hint. You need to pass two arguments to this function. All right. If you do not pass anything or less than two or more than two, it's going to give you error message. Let's say in this example I forgot to pass anything to this function. So I'm going to run it, and it's going to give me error. This error message says some problem missing two required positional arguments, right? Because with the definition you say I expect to get two parameters, but when you're calling it, you're not passing anything to it, right? It was like these two are different from each other. The function that was defined is different from the way that you're using it. So I don't understand what you're looking for. Give me some more information, all right? So in this case, you either need to fix your function or the way that you're calling your function. In my example, my function is all good, so I need to fix my call to that function. So I'm going to pass two numbers to it. I'm going to pass, for instance, 2 and 4 to that function. So now let's run it, see what we get. Here you go. The sum of 2 and 4 is 6. So when you call this function, you're passing these two numbers to some problem. So 2 is going to be assigned to A, 4 is going to be assigned to B, all right? You add those two numbers to each other, store them into total, and then you create this string, all right? The sum of 2, which is your A, here is B, which is 4, is 6, all right? So you can do this for any number that you want, okay? So if you want to have like a huge numbers, you can do it. It does not matter, all right? So if I run it now, I get it 1 for 2 and 4, and then I get that function call for these two big numbers, right? You can also get input from user. I can say num1 equal to int input, let's say first number, and then you're going to get another number from your user, okay? So num1 and num2, and first is has a typo, okay? So you get two values from your user, and then you can pass those values to your function. So num1 and num2. All right, so now if I run it, I get it for those two lines. Now it asks me because I get to this line, all right? So with this, so let's just follow the code, all right? So you start from here. These are comments, so Python doesn't do anything. You get to this function header, so it remembers the name and how it is defined. It says, okay, all right, I know you have this function. I remember it. Whenever you need it, I will come back here, all right? It follows, it gets to the main function. I was like, okay, there's a function, I remember you. If you call me, I come back, and I know you exist and you're here. And then you just jump into this main, all right? So now you have a call to a function, all right? And you're calling this main function. So when you call it, you go inside that function, follow the instruction. So first line is print main function. Here you go. So you're printing that line. In the next line, you're calling another function. So some problem, you're passing 2 and 4 to that function. So you simply go to that function. So from here, you leave, you come here, pass 2 and 4. So 2 is assigned to A, 4 is assigned to B. Follow the instruction, you get this output. After you're done executing all of the lines that you have, you come back wherever you left, right? So you're done with this line, you move on to the next line. Another call to a function. So you go and follow the instruction. After you're done, you come back here. So now you get to this input line. So you're getting an input from your user, okay? And you're storing it to variable num1. So first number, I'm going to say 1. Second number, I'm going to say 5, all right? So the sum of, now you have a call to a function, you're passing variable num1 and num2. Num1 is number 1 in this example, num2 is value 5, and you're passing those two values to your function, and you're getting an output. Again, this is an example of non-value returning function because you're just using this function for its side effects. All right, nothing is returned from this function back to wherever it is called. Right, you have some calculation stuff in this example, and you're printing something. Okay. All right, now let's try another example. I'm going to not call this function. I'm going to delete that, and now going back to what we had originally. You can leave function calls. If you do not call them, they're not going to be executed. All right, so you just can have like many functions in your program and not use them. That is totally fine. So I'm going to leave some problem definition right here, and I'm going to define another function, and that function is function f. All right, function f is simply getting a value, and it's trying to calculate the square of a number. Okay, so I'm passing this value x to it, and I want to, let's say, print x multiplied by x. Okay, so I'm printing that value x multiplied by x. So now if I want to see that result, I can simply say function f, and I'm passing this value 2 to it, right? So if I pass this value 2 is going to be assigned to x, and then you're printing 2 multiplied by 2, which I expect to get 4, right? Now I want to slightly change this function. So instead of having this function to have some side effect, I wanted to actually return something back to the main wherever it is called. Okay, so I'm going to replace this print with return. Okay, right now I'm saying return, and as you see, it turned orange because it's a keyword. So you can have parentheses or not have parentheses, it doesn't matter because it's a keyword, it's not a function. So now I'm saying return this value. All right, whatever it is, return it. So now let's follow what we have. So you're calling the function, you're passing a value to it. The value comes here, very similar to what we had before. Value comes here, you calculate 2 multiplied by 2, and you're returning that value now. Okay, so the value that you return from that function comes back here and replace this. Okay, so 4 is going to replace this. If you're passing 2, 4 is going to come and replace f parentheses 2. Right, so now let's run it, see what we get. I'm going to run it, and I'm not getting anything. Why is that? Because if I replace this by 4 and if I run it, I'm not going to get anything. You get something displayed if you print it. If you do not print it, you're not going to get anything. All right, so if you want this 4 to be printed, or if you want to do something with it, you need to use print function. All right, so now I'm going to go back with the original form of it. So I'm calling this function, which is inside another function, and passing 2 to it. So 2 comes here, 2 multiplied by 2, and you return that value, whatever it is. In this example, it is 4, to here. So this whole thing is going to be replaced by 4, and you're printing the value 4. Okay, so let's try it. So now I'm trying it. Here you go. Now you have it. You have the value that is displayed. All right, so make sure, and that is a huge difference between non-value returning function versus value returning function. If you have non-value returning function, you're using it for its side effects, so you don't need to worry about printing it. And actually, you should not print the values that comes back from non-value returning function, because they are not returning anything back to you. So if I want to say some problem and pass 2 and 4 to it, it should work simply by calling the function directly. If I say print it though, here we get this value none in addition to what we got from the function. And the reason is with any function that you have or with parentheses, you always evaluate the expression that you have inside the parentheses, right? So you evaluate this part first, and that is a call to a function. So you go to function, follow the instructions, you print this line, and all good. Now it gets to the print. So since this function is not returning anything, is going to be replaced by none, and then you're printing none. Okay, but in this example, in the second example, you are returning a value. So this whole thing is going to be replaced by a number or whatever you're returning from that function, and you're allowed to print that value. Okay, so be very careful. If you have a non-value returning function and if you try to print its value, you're going to get that none, because non-value returning function are not returning anything. All right, they're non-value returning function. But with value returning function, you actually must do something with the value they return, otherwise you're not going to see anything. Okay, so going back to this example, I can say, for instance, f2 plus f3. Okay, so now what happens is you evaluate whatever is inside parentheses, and since you have a plus, you go from left to right. Okay, so you evaluate this first, so you pass 2 to this function and you get 4 as a return value. Okay, and then you evaluate whatever you have in the right side of the plus sign. All right, so you pass 3 to this function. 3 multiplied by 3 is going to be 9. You replace this expression by 9. Okay, and you just simply add 4 and 9 to each other, and then you get 13. All right, so now let's run it, see if we get that value. So here you go, you see. So try to run it in your head, see if the logic that Python follows matches the mental model that you have with the program that you wrote. Okay? In the next few videos, I'm going to show you more example on non-value returning function and value returning function. Okay?